your life that'll get the quote unquote trickle down effect of you being healthier, you being happier. Any questions thus far?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, you first.
Yep.
So just from what I remember before, you're talking about sleep, now you go to bed at 9, but
Yes.
you usually probably get up at 4:30. So what's the minimum is 7 hours, is that what I remember,
Yep.
what you're trying to get for sleep?
So when I go, perfect, last night, right? I always try to work backwards to about 7.5, right? Because, be honest, I don't just run into bed, jump in, and I'm out, right? It takes a little time to fall asleep. But I try to work backwards from about 7.5 hours, because last night I set my alarm, I don't know what time, 9:30ish, 9:45. Actually, last night was a little later. So I think last night was about 10, which is relatively late for me. But then I got up about 5:30, 5:45. So about 7.5 hours. I aim for 7. Again, for those of you that are readers that love to read, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker completely changed my outlook on coaching men and women and my own personal life. So I try to always work backwards. And going back to with Pam, create routines and habits, right? I have a son who's gonna be a year old. Anybody in this room that has children, you know, how wild would that be if you're like, all right, tonight Ben's gonna stay up until midnight. And then the next night he's gonna go to bed at 7. The next night he's gonna go to bed at 8:30. You're like, what are you doing? Newsflash, we're all big giant babies. We're all big giant babies. We work a lot better with routine and structure. So that is a huge part of it, is saying, I call it my in bed no later than, right? In bed no later than, for me, is usually 9:30. Last night was a little later, so then I just adjusted and said, okay, it's not a weekday. I don't need to be up before 5 a.m., so I'll sleep a little bit later, right? So I always do. We're going on vacation in a week, right? And I'll probably stay up a hair later and sleep in just a little bit later. So adjust it as you go. But this is one of my favorite things to say. If you can build good habits and good routines, right? If anybody here has ever smoked or you know a smoker, when a smoker goes on vacation, they don't leave the cigarettes at home. They make sure they have cigarettes for the trip, or they figure out where the cigarettes are going to be when they get there, right? A smoker smokes. If you can develop habits of paying attention to your sleep, eating healthy, and exercise, they travel with you. I don't care if you live in New York. I don't care if you travel to Germany. I don't care if you move to Texas. If you can develop good habits, just like bad habits, they travel with you. They go with you, right? So when I go on vacation, well, these aren't running shoes, I'm going to bring running shoes. I'm probably going to swim a lot. I'm probably going to read. I'm going to do all these things that are good habits. Just because I'm driving 3 states away doesn't mean that I leave them behind. But we have to build those habits. Coming back, we have to get repetitions in. We have to make it simple. So coming all the way back to, you're like, all right, I'm going to get 8 hours of sleep, but that means I'm going to go to bed at 7:30. No, you're not. You have to make sure it's realistic, right? You have to make sure that it works for you, because 9:30 for me might be great, but that might not be good for you, right? So long answer, 7 hours at a minimum, 7.5 is usually where we try to go. And if you had the ability to hit 8, great. But and I tried it. The first 5 years of running a business, I was up until 11 and getting up at, I don't even know, 4:40, right? That didn't go well. You can ask anybody that knew me 5-6 years ago. I was cranky, I was an asshole, it wasn't good. Started realizing how much the sleep has an impact on all of those things. Things got a lot better. Long answer. Did I answer it though? All right. I'll try to be longer on that next time. Pam.
What is your opinion on taking physical measurements, and how often should you do it? So like, I know the InBody will do certain things for you, but like for me, as you know, my weight fluctuates a lot based on if I took in too much salt or if I, whatever the case may be, but those inches might be going away.
There's a great saying. What gets measured gets changed. So at a minimum, you have to do 2 InBodies.
Right.
You could very well hop on the scale every day. You could very well do tape measurements every 3 days. The more measurements, the better. The more measurements. Now you don't have to make every hour on the hour. Right. There's a dangerous side to that too.
Right.
But I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, don't talk about the scale. Don't talk about the scale. If you're 20, 40, 50, 100 pounds overweight, we need to talk about the scale. Mm-hmm. That's going to kill you not talking about the scale, right? But we don't, again, you can go, we don't want somebody weighing themselves every 30 minutes after they have a bowel movement, right?
Right.
But measurements work. tape, you know, the old-fashioned tape measurements. Those are fine. So, you know, what's a good plan with that? I weigh myself almost, well, I do how about this? I do, again, going back, what does John do?
Right.
I do an in-body every single week, every Friday. Every Friday I do an in-body, whether it's been a great week, bad week, in between. Just to make sure I don't have this, how did that happen? Well, because you stop checking it, right? You stop paying attention to it. So I would say at a minimum, I would weigh myself weekly. The farther I am from where I want to be, the more frequent I would probably do it. Maybe every 2 days, every 3 days. So if I'm really far off the mark, I'm gonna track that like there's no tomorrow. Because if I just kind of go, oh, well, I don't like what it says. Okay, well then look at it more often and change it.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you touch on, especially for like women, hormonal like changes, like how they'll affect your weight? Because I feel like I was someone who would weigh myself every single day, and like I would have anywhere from like a 1 to like a 7 pound fluctuation. I'd be like, I was perfect the last 3 days, like there's absolutely no way this is right. But then, you know, I've had a coach in the past and they've been like, this could be why, and I feel like that's just a good topic to touch on so people don't get discouraged.
Absolutely, and actually I'll probably bring in a subject. I'm a big fan of bringing in people that are smarter than me, right? So I actually have a very close friend who is a certified dietitian who her whole specialty is that. And I'll probably bring her in and let her talk about that. But going back, now if you were to say, okay, I'm gonna weigh myself every day, and then you can identify and say, hey, this is why, because I'm doing it. But if you only had 2 data points, you weighed yourself at the 1st of the month and the 30th of the month, you're like, I don't know why I'm so far off, right? It's a big science experiment. Measure your data, look at your data. What is the data telling me, right? The more things you can measure, right? And again, within reason, you don't need to be like, okay, I've already went down that. But yeah, I would tell you, measure it as frequently as you can, because then you can put your finger on it and go, oh, no shit, that's why that's happening. So going back to sleep, I know we left sleep a minute ago. 3 years ago, I could show you, I have journals where I would give myself a letter grade. I would say, how did you sleep last night, John? Old-fashioned A through F. A+, B+, B+, D. Well, why did I have a D? Well, because I stayed up super late, or the house was 78 degrees, the AC broke, or the dog was sick and thrown up all over the place. But if I wasn't paying attention to it, I wouldn't know why, right? And then the best part is when things are going really, really well, and you get this outlier, this crazy, something went wrong, you can look at it, and then the intelligent person says, how do I have that happen less often? Now, if it's a hormonal thing, that might not be within your control. So again, long answer. I'll bring in a subject matter expert to touch on that in particular. That's a great question.
I
I
would do the
can't
same thing
speak
when I was training.
from experience on that one. Jamie,
Do you need us to fill out the online profile?
that would be amazing. I think you already did. So if you registered online, because I will push, like I say, more content to you guys. If you guys do the 6 week and say, oh, John didn't even give us any information. Yeah, I'm 6 feet under. There's something happened to me. I love this stuff. You guys can see I've talked for 39 minutes basically straight just on these topics. So the way that we'll push it out though is via email and that Facebook group. Those will be the 2 biggest ways that we can just push it out. Easy, check your email. I know some people don't use Facebook. More power to you. But if you don't use Facebook and you don't use email, then it's gonna be hard unless they, come give me handwritten letters.
Can you put a link to the Facebook group in an email?
Yep, because
Just
I
in
just made it
case.
last night, so nobody.
Oh, all right. I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't know if I'm on it or not. So
I just made
sorry.
it last
Okay.
night. I just made it last night. And the honest answer too is the next, today's Sunday, and the next Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This is the way these always go. You got your procrastinators. They're gonna go, oh shit, it was today, and they're gonna jump in today and tomorrow, right? So you're gonna see probably a lot of duplication of, hey, here's all the nutrition for videos, and then even on Monday and Tuesday, hey guys, here it is again in case you missed it. Hey, here's a link. So I'll make sure I double tap and triple tap all of that stuff. And again, you guys, the majority of you guys know me. I'm very accessible. You can find me, there's 2 places I'm here. I'm here at my house. I don't really go anywhere else. You can always message me on Facebook. You can text message me. Half of you guys have my personal phone number. I'm not worried about that. I want you to be successful. Nothing makes me happier than you guys being successful. Because guess what? Here's an even better one. Man, I help you be successful, and then you teach your son, your daughter, your neighbor, your cousin, your coworker, your friend, right? Those are some of my favorite ones. We had a young woman, this is, and I'll end it here and then just leave up with a question. We had a young woman, she joined 2 years ago. 2 years ago, doing a challenge just like this. She joined and she's down 50 some odd pounds. You guys know it's Erin Ulrich. She's down 50 pounds. You wouldn't even recognize her. How she's down 50 pounds? Her brother lives an hour away. Her brother starts watching Erin join a gym, eat better, do all these different things. He's down 110 pounds. Down 110 pounds. And he sent me multiple messages and said, the reason why I've done this is because my sister did this over at your facility. So you don't know. One of my videos you'll see me talk about. You don't know who's watching you. You have no idea. Maybe it's the coworker, maybe it's the nephew, maybe it's the mother, maybe it's who knows. And even if nobody's watching you, do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. But you have no clue who's watching you via social media, binoculars through your window, right? You have no clue who's watching you. So do your best. Change, make the improvements. And then, like I said, you can learn it. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say one of the big things is maybe touch on like dealing with kind of the peer pressure from people who don't understand like this lifestyle. You know, maybe a lot of this times you go camping and everyone's like, why won't you don't want to be that person that like shows up with your meals, but maybe touch on like who cares, like if people want to comment, because after a while it becomes like it's just normal if you show up with your meals, if you show up with like sparkling water, if you don't drink. I think that's a big thing is at first it's like weird to people around you, but then it just becomes the norm and they stop giving you a hard time. So if you can just get through that initial like, why are you showing up with 3 containers of food every time you come somewhere? It's just like it just becomes normal to people. So if you just get through that, like it is what it is.
2 great things. Number 1, you hit the nail on the head. And number 2, anything that I don't touch on that you guys want to hear my 2 cents on, hey John, how would you navigate this? How would you approach this? I've probably done 3,000 videos. I love doing videos. I love talking about this stuff, but you're 100% correct. And you have to remember this. At the end of the day, it's you. Who the hell cares? And that's a point you have to come to in your life. And you're, how old are you?
24.
24. I applaud you. To have that mentality of like, I don't give, for lack of better words, I don't give a shit what you have to say. It's my health, it's my mental health, my physical health, it's my next 80 years. You're 24. By the time you're 100, the medicine you probably live to be 120. If you take care of yourself, right? If you take care of yourself. So who gives a shit if Mary over here doesn't understand why you're doing it? And the best part about that is if you do it long enough, Mary at some point may have a 180 and go, hey, remember when I was ragging on you? Remember when I was picking on you because you were bringing sparkling water up to the campsite instead of this, and the other thing? She might ask you, hey, how did you do that? How did you get started? Because you do something for a long enough time and you just feel like shit, you're probably gonna start to look for people that don't feel like shit and say, hey, how did you do that? So you have to tread that carefully, right? Because if you rip her head off and make her feel bad that she's not doing it, she'll probably never ask you. But if you just say, hey, look, I'm just doing this because I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, you do it long enough, there's a likelihood that at some point that person may say, hey, how did you get started? How did you do that, right? So I applaud you for already thinking that way at 24. But at the end of the day, it's your life, your body, your mental health, all of those things. So any questions that you're thinking now or over the next 6 weeks and you're not quite sure, ask, and I'll put together a 49-minute video on it. Any other questions, comments, concerns, anything whatsoever? Don't go through the 6 weeks and be like, I don't want to ask him this. I have a library. I looked at it last night. I have a library of like 200 different videos, right? And if I don't have an answer for it, I'll make a new video. I enjoy doing it. It's good for me. It helps me because having to get up here and speak about this stuff I have to remember all that, everything I just said to you, I have to remember that. I have to pull it up from here and I have to speak it. It helps me. So the more questions you guys ask, the more it makes me think, the better it makes me at coaching, the better it makes me. So you guys pepper me with questions. You say, John, I'm struggling with that, with the other things, and I'll answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I've had trouble in the past with the intermittent fasting and my macros of getting it all eaten within that frame time. So do you extend your intermittent fasting
No
time
way.
or do you
No way.
cut down your macros?
Keeping
How
it
do you
super
manage that?
short. If you have excess stores of body fat, and you're gonna be under for that day and you feel full, stop eating. Stop eating.
You know, you didn't hit your macros.
The human body is a very, really amazing, wild machine. It is insane. Like the human body is crazy. We have these great self-regulating things, right? If I have to use the restroom, I'm gonna go use the restroom. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm not, within reason. So with intermittent fasting, if you feel like, hey, I'm really not hungry right now, but MyFitnessPal says I'm supposed to have another 400 calories, and you have excess stores of body fat that your body can use, let it use it. Let it use it up. Now, if you were really, really lean or underweight, that might be a different story. But the way I always explain it is fuel, there's excess stores of body fat that can be utilized as fuel. But if you say, oh, well, I gotta get these extra 400 calories in, you just brought in more fuel for that system to consume. So if you are to choose intermittent fasting as your method of choice, then just be sure that you understand that you don't necessarily have to, priorities would be stay within your window. If you stay within your window and then you can hit your enough calories today, great. Within reason, right? Any questions, comments, concerns?
I
Yes,
have
ma'am.
one question, so
You can have
when
two.
we do the in-body,
Yep.
we're gonna, if we choose macros, will we get the numbers again? I forgot what mine even were.
I can send it to you.
You
It's
can,
easy. Yep.
and then
Very easy.
one other thing.
Good morning, guys.
If you wanna flip-flop, not all the time, say you're gonna do macros, but one day is just crazy.
Yep.
And I know the tray is super easy, and you have the stuff, can you use the tray for a day, go back to the or would you recommend staying with one method the whole time? I know it's simple is better, I know,
That's a great question.
but I'm gonna
It's a
tell
fair,
you,
it's-
sometimes,
it is
rather
a
than
fair,
fail,
it is a fair question.
Yep.
Right? And it's a good question. So what Dana's saying is if she has, she's doing really well with one style of eating and she has just a wild day, can she do something slightly different? Of course.
but just
Of
the
course.
tray is easy, just to put
Of
the 1,
course.
2, 3, and you're done,
Of
no
course.
entering.
Because I would rather that you stay consistent and move in the right direction. Because if you said, okay, I'm doing macros
Right,
and I've had 13 great days, but oh shit, life happened. And you just throw it all out the window because you're like, I didn't get to do macros, and you just go bananas, and then you go, game over.
right,
No way.
okay,
You do 13 days of great macros, and then you say, hey, look, I've got a couple of these trays left over from the last time we did this. Hey, it's not perfect, but it's better than the alternative. Do it. And then guess what? The next day you say, hey, life will settle back down. I get right back to where I am. That's the big picture. I'm telling you, 6 years, 16 years. Those of you that are young enough to say 60 years, right? Establish these habits, and that's a mindset thing of not letting like one day of less than ideal performance derail you from
right,
where you want to go, right? I've had more of my drop, but everybody wants their trajectory from point A to point B to be this perfectly straight, even straight line. That's not the way it works. It doesn't work that way in business and relationships and any of it. It's like up, and then a plateau, and then up, and then a plateau, and maybe even back a little bit. But then as long as you can look and say, okay, over a long enough period of time, did I go in the right direction? You say, yeah, so okay, that day I did the trade, or 2 days, a weekend, we traveled, right? That's a great example.
Yeah.
Oh shit, we traveled.
right,
But I just did the train method to get me through the weekend. Great, we'll call that a little plateau. If you had just thrown in the towel and your progress went all the way back to zero, so that's probably the best question I had.
because the foods are pretty much the same.
Yeah,
You should
yeah.
be eating the same stuff,
Correct.
whichever one you're doing.
Correct.
So, I just didn't know if
That's
that
a great
would affect
question.
that.
That's a great question. That's called having a safety net. That's
Right.
called having a plan B or a plan C. Plan F, throw it all out the window is not good.
Right, okay, thanks.
And even if you had a day, even if you had a day that was horrible, you just went off the rails like you've never done in your life ever. You just ate until you were sick. That's still only one day. Still only one day. Just like if you had said, okay, one day out of my entire life, I'm gonna actually have some vegetables, some good foods. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is what do you do 90 to 95% of the time. Those are what habits are. What are your habits? You should change it from just summer challenge. You should build better habits.
Something that was important that you told me
Yep.
when we worked together the first time was to eat the birthday cake.
Yes.
So don't beat yourself up. It's the 90% of the time, if you're staying on
Correct.
track and you're being consistent, it's gonna work. Like, I had a really hard time. We had a huge family party one weekend, and I was like, John, I'm stressing. Like, I have this mentality, like, don't let the weekend be your weekend. So, like, I'm trying to stay consistent, and John's like, Pam, it's one day. Like, just do it, enjoy yourself, and tomorrow morning, get up and start again. Like, it's okay. Like, don't get in this mental funk about it.
Correct. With that though, you have to pick and choose.
Right.
Because if you go, well, tomorrow is my cousin's birthday, and the next day, my neighbor across the street, their dog learned how to play the piano, and the next day, it's like, no, you pick and choose when you want to do that.
Right.
But that's not going to, like I said, one piece of birthday cake is not gonna mess up your entire life. Just like eating broccoli one day is not gonna make you healthy one time. You've gotta develop the habits over time. Guys, I'm gonna segue into getting ready to do any weigh-ins for anybody that wants to do weigh-ins. For anybody that just kinda came in, all of everything I said will be pushed up onto YouTube. If you were so enthralled, you wanna listen to the entire thing again, you obviously can do so. I will be plugging everybody into a Facebook group if you choose to use Facebook. If you don't, no problem, you will still get everything via email, and we will go from there. Any closing questions, comments, concerns? Alright, so you are more than welcome to weigh in now. You don't have to, so you can come back tomorrow anytime from 5 a.m. We're here super early to 5 p.m. or Tuesday 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. You don't have to make an appointment. I'm gonna have either be myself, my wife, or a coach hanging out by the InBody. I didn't touch on partners, right? When you weigh in, let us know who your partner is. After Monday and Tuesday and the dust kind of settles with all the initial weigh-ins, anybody that we don't know, hey, we kind of got Mary kicking around in the wind. Hey Mary, who's your partner? So as you're weighing in, if you can just let us know, we'll jot it down, and then by Wednesday at the latest, we'll have a good grasp on that. Questions, comments, concerns? Yes, sir.
The weigh-ins
Yep.
and how you're judging, is it percentage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. With that, we're gonna have you try to do, within reason, do your weigh-ins consistently, right? That's also just for your own personal reference. Don't come in and do a weigh-in tomorrow at 5:02 a.m. and then do one 6 weeks from now at 5:02 p.m. There will be a drastic difference, generally not in your favor, before and after. Just like any kind of science experiment, try to eliminate the variables. Try to make it as consistent as possible. Great question. All right, I'm gonna move over towards the InBody. If you guys aren't familiar with where that is or what that is, it's around the corner. Anybody that wants to weigh in today, you're more than welcome to. Anybody that wants to weigh in Monday or Tuesday, we'll see you then, and you'll be seeing me virtually a ton. You guys have ways to get in touch with me, and we'll go from there. All right, my friends, have a great day. Did I run out of film, Pam?
No, you're good.
52 minutes.